Okay, in this video I'm going to take a look at working time and rest periods in Irish law. I'm just going to set out the essentials. The relevant legislation is the Organisation of Working Time Act 1997. Firstly, as I said, the legislation is the Organisation of Working Time Act 1997, and this Act will define working time and rest periods and so on. It also states the category of worker that the Act does not apply to. For example, Gardaí, members of Defence Forces, and there are certain categories of workers who are also exempt from the legislation. So Section 11 gives the daily rest period, and the daily rest period basically states that an employee shall be entitled to a rest period of not less than 11 consecutive hours in each period of 24 hours during which he or she works for the employer. Section 12 then sets out the rests and intervals at work. So an employer shall not require an employee to work for a period of more than 4 hours and 30 minutes without allowing him or her a break of at least 15 minutes. In addition, an employer shall not require the employee to work for a period of more than 6 hours without allowing him or her a break of at least 30 minutes, and that break may include the earlier break referred to, the 15-minute break. There's also regulations dealing with certain specified classes of workers, for example retail workers, and there's regulations concerning that. We'll have a look at that just in a minute. It's worth noting as well that a break allowed to an employee at the end of a working day or at the end of a shift shall not be regarded as satisfying the requirement, the legislative or statutory entitlement. So a break at the end of the day does not suffice. Weekly rest periods then are set out in Section 13, an entitlement to at least 24 hours, consecutive hours of a break in each period of 7 days. Or the employer can choose to have 2 rest periods, each of which must be for at least 24 consecutive hours during a second 7 days period. So this rest period must be preceded by a Section 11 rest period. The Section 11 rest period, remember, is 11 consecutive hours in each period of 24 hours. So unless the employment contract provides otherwise, the 24 hours rest period shall be a Sunday, or if the rest period is of more than 24 hours duration, shall include a Sunday. However, a lot of contracts will stipulate that your working week will include a Sunday, so that may not apply. Section 6 then sets out a provision in relation to compensatory rest periods. There are exemptions provided for certain workplaces and industries. For example, in particular circumstances, an employer can give compensatory rest periods where it's not possible for the employee to get his or her statutory entitlement in the normal course of events. Retail shop workers then have particular regulations. The basis or one of the features of these regulations for retail shop employees is that if your hours of work include the hours from 11:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and you work for more than 6 hours, then the minimum break that you're entitled to is 1 hour, and this 1 hour break should take place between these hours mentioned and cannot be granted at the end of the working day. Section 14 then deals with Sunday work. So Section 14 provides for compensation for employees who are required to work on a Sunday, where this has not otherwise been taken account of in deciding pay. This is an entitlement to a Sunday premium. Quite what the extent of the premium is decided on individual cases, but you are entitled to a premium by law for working on a Sunday. But as I say, different cases have been decided by the Workplace Relations Commission, the Employment Appeals Tribunal, the Labour Court, as to the extent of the premium, and it may well be a situation where you may be only entitled to say 10 or 20 cents per hour extra for working on a Sunday, and the employer probably will argue that whatever rate of pay you're getting, it includes a premium for working on Sunday. Weekly working hours then, an employee cannot work in excess of 48 hours in a week. The average is taken over a 2 to 12 month period, depending on the industry and depending on whether you are a night worker or not. There's additional protection for night workers. Employers cannot oblige a night worker to work over 8 hours in a 24-hour period. A night worker is a worker who works at least 3 hours post-midnight, as night work is considered to be from midnight to 7 a.m. Section 17 then gives an entitlement to information about your working time. Where an employee does not have a normal or regular starting and finish time of work, for example if you don't work 9 to 5, then the employer must give at least 24 hours notice of the relevant starting and finishing times, and the employee is entitled to the same notice in respect of overtime or additional hours that the employer may require the employee to work, and it's a breach of this Act if that information is not provided. When it comes to enforcing rights and remedies and so on, complaints to the Workplace Relations Commission must be brought within 6 months of the breach, 12 months if reasonable cause can be shown. It's up to the adjudicator to decide on what is reasonable cause, but clearly if you as an employee are out of time or you're in excess of the 6 months period, then you will need to put forward reasons which will give the adjudicator the opportunity to say, okay, I'm accepting that there's reasonable cause for the late submission. The adjudicator can award up to 2 years remuneration for breaches of this Act, or the adjudicator can find that the complaint was not well founded, or can require the employer to simply comply with the relevant provision of the legislation. I hope you find this video useful. If you do, give it a thumbs up down below, and you see my contact details on the screen there. If you find it useful, you may be also interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel, because on my YouTube channel I try to explain in plain English various aspects of Irish law, and all aspects of Irish law would include employment, property, buying and selling houses, general sort of litigation, personal injuries, small business, and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching.